Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the October meeting of the Maharashtra Hub of Placemaking India. With the support and guidance of Placemaking India Network's regional leader, Vinita Shetty, we have successfully completed 6 months of the Hub with the meeting on the third Sunday of each month. In the last few months, we looked at the winning entries for various cities in Maharashtra for the Streets for People challenge, which was rolled out by the Smart Cities mission under the Ministry of Housing and Urbanism with ITDP India as its knowledge partner. And today, we will be having a concluding session of the same with our two panelists, architect Prasanna Desai and Aangi Shah from ITDP. Architect Prasanna Desai has been practicing as an architect and urban designer in Pune since 1993. He has been involved in various projects which include housing schemes, slum rehabilitation, as well as industrial, institutional, and township projects. Most recently, he has designed and implemented Streets for All at the DP Road in Aundh in Pune. He believes that an architect who is trained to be a sensitive person also needs to be an aware citizen, thus playing a major role in the development of the society and contribute to the betterment of the cities. Aangi, a research associate at ITDP, is actively involved in the technical pieces and coordination for the two national level challenges, India Cycles for Change Challenge and Streets for People Challenge. She's a trained architect and has worked on various urban level projects during her time with HCP and WRI. Her most shaping experience has been the last year that she spent in Nairobi working on cities and climate change at UN Habitat, gaining an international perspective in a multicultural work environment with phenomenal leaders from various disciplines. She wishes to see a world where cities prioritize people and not cars to make them feel safe and free to seek the smaller joys of life. We are really thankful for both of them to sparing their time and being with us here today. Today's session will be moderated by Placemaking India Network member Enakshi Bhatia. Enakshi is an urban designer working in Mumbai, and she has a special interest in the various aspects of street design and its implementation. Before we begin today's discussion, I'll quickly go through the last 4 meetings in order to create a reference to those who missed it. I'll just show a few slides of the 4 entries that we saw, and then we can start with the discussion. So the first meeting that we had for Streets of People was in May, and that was the Sitabuldi Street in Nagpur. The Blank Slate Studio from Mumbai had won this competition where they shared their design of a low-cost, replicable, and easy-to-execute solution for market users as well as vehicles to coexist harmoniously. So basically, this street was is a marketplace, which is a very popular marketplace. So it was very important to create that kind of harmony. And I'm not sure, but Beena should be joining or must have joined from Blank Slate Studio. In June, we had the Nashik entry, which was won by a group of students who were together in the architecture college. So it was a collaborative effort of all of them together. And the project, they called it Ram Malhar, which designed a street on the old Agra road in Nashik with the use of tactical urbanism and cost-free materials, etc. Then in July, we had the entry for PCMC by Shunya Studio, which won the competition. Their design was based on the idea of the 15-minute city, and they proposed a linear park which was flexible and it evolved with time. So this could be replicated in multiple locations within that area. That was their proposal. Again, Abhijit should be with us or might have joined already. And then,
yeah, I've joined.
Yeah. Hi, Abhijit. And then we had Aurangabad Smart City Development Corporation representatives from that is Arpita, who's the media analyst with them. So since they've been doing a lot of interventions to enable pedestrians and make the streets more people friendly. They shared that experience with us. And they also facilitated the Streets for People challenge for Aurangabad. So that was the perspective that we got from them. Again, Arpita should be with us. I'm not sure, I can't see her, but anyways, so hopefully she will join. So this was just a recap of the 4 entries that we had. And we will take this discussion from here. So now I hand it over to Enakshi, who will start with the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipra, for the introduction, and welcome Professor Desai and Aangi to this session. Since it's a concluding session of all our discussions on the initiatives in Maharashtra, I'd like Aangi to present the last one on Pune, and then we can take the discussion forward. Over to you, Aangi.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Vipra. Thanks, Enakshi. Thanks, Vipra, for the introduction. And yeah, so just moving on to Pune. Pune, as we all know, has been championing non-motorized transport infrastructure since over the past half a decade or more. And Prasanna Desai, sir, it's your home ground, so I'm sure you can attest to that as well. But yeah, so basically, since the past 6-7 years, there have been transformations that are phenomenal on ground, the JM road, the FC road, ITI road as well, that have been like very, very transformational examples from Pune. So just sort of leveraging on that, PMC sort of took the opportunity of making the most of the Streets for People challenge as well. And they identified a flagship and a neighborhood site. So the mandate from the Streets for People challenge was to identify one flagship at least and one neighborhood site to transform through the challenge period. So yes, Pune sort of took up the Shush Pashan Road for their flagship and another neighborhood site as well. And they've gone ahead to transform the Shush Pashan Road at this point. So just basically like how all the other cities took up through the process of the entire challenge, Pune also rolled out the design competition to start with. They got 70 entries, which is fantastic. And from these 70 registrations, which is great. And then from these, they started with like these walking audits. So along with these participants, they visited these sites, they understood what were the concerns on the site, they spoke to the stakeholders, they understood what were the different barriers that, the design solutions needed to address on these sites as well. From here, they moved on to actually, the deadline of the competition itself. They received 20 entries, and these were internally shortlisted. From here, 10 entries went ahead for the jury that the NMT committee sort of took up, and Prasanna Desai sir was also a part of this committee, and I'm sure he can also probably add a little bit more about the entries later in this conversation. But 3 entries were basically shortlisted as the top 3 winners. Now, unfortunately, at this time, COVID hit, and despite this, PMC, as well as a nodal officer, the Streets for People team went ahead and conducted various workshops in collaborations with the top 3 entries. So at this point, they had they were sort of working to refine the design for Shush Pashan Road to see how they can work towards a strategy, a work plan, implementation plan to put something on ground. I'd like to just quickly present the design. I'm just going to share my screen. Just let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, Aangi, we can.
Yeah, so along in collaboration with the top 3 winners and the team sort of working on it from PMC, this is what they decided to go ahead with. So 430 meter stretch on Pashan Shush Road, and the key elements were to reclaim more space for the footpaths, to have a cycle loop as well. 2 intersections were also selected for the TU, 2 pedestrian mid-block crossings, 180 meter experience zone, which was on one side. Let's take a look at what the experience zone itself was looking like. They had different sort of activities planned: art, music, children's play area, main exhibition zones, on-ground engagement, road safety awareness programs, and much more. And so what they did is that over one weekend, they went ahead with actually having all of these interventions across this 430 meter stretch using paints, bollards, tires, and like anything that just made the street more vibrant, like these balloons and flags and colorful, vibrant paints and things like that. So just to like get more and more people on the street to experience different possibilities that can actually happen how we can use streets as public spaces. There was music, there was painting, art, learning, cycling as well, cycle training camps, parking. And they also started to get feedback. So a couple of interesting ways in which they did this was, one, the engineers from PMC themselves sort of, along with printed panels of the design, were on the site, on the pilot site, discussing this, as you're seeing on the left-hand side image, with citizens. So citizens who were interested in knowing more about the designs were actually explained by the public sector people themselves as to what is going to come. And if they had any suggestions, they were also considered. They also had these interesting Chai Pe Charcha events along with the deputy mayor and other, like even the corporator was involved in these discussions, where it works both ways, right? So one is that citizens are exposed to a transparent process from the public side to sort of know more about what's happening on their streets. And even like bureaucratic leaders are sort of understanding the citizens' opinion, citizens' concerns, what they want, how they want to do things, what are their questions, what is coming up, and how they can actually take this ahead. They had drawing competitions involving kids, received feedback from all genders and all ages. And they also sort of rolled out perception surveys, just seeing on the left-hand side image on the slide. On site, on ground, there were volunteers deployed to collect these responses. And along with this, they also rolled out perception surveys online that was a little more detailed. So there was a QR code put up and people could scan it and like go on their phones, quickly understand, or share their thoughts and share what they feel about the design that is going to come up. So all of this feedback was then eventually compiled in a report. I'm gonna stop sharing now. Yeah, so all of this feedback was compiled together in a report that was submitted to the PMC as well. And these considerations were taken into sort of account by the PMC, and they refined the design based on this. At this point, they've also sort of taken it one step ahead, and they're implementing this as a permanent solution on ground. So that's what is in process right now. And just sort of stressing upon one more concept that is like the mantra of the Streets for People challenge, and for that matter, Cycles for Change challenge, the test, learn, scale approach, right? So like we've been telling all the cities, and what Pune has imbibed pretty meticulously is that first they've put something on ground that's quick, that's temporary, that's low cost. They're sort of learning from it, they're understanding how people are responding to it, and eventually addressing those concerns and scaling it up by making it permanent and taking it to other parts in the city. So that was a quick and hopefully brief overview on Pune's journey in the Streets for People challenge.
Thank you, Aangi, for that. I'd like to get Professor Desai in this conversation. How do you, the first question that comes up is that usually these competitions have one winner, but there are multiple ideas that come out of the competition itself. So how do we looking at taking away all the ideas and sort of, creating better design impact rather than this one entry winning? And then, what is the process like of taking as a profession, taking away all the collective ideas and then giving them back? So your mic is on mute. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. So thanks for inviting and letting me share some thoughts. Now, your specific question is that you have many winners, and can we collectively take these ideas together and merge it into one basket and do something? It is, yes, it can be done, but at sometimes, no, it cannot be done. Because I think ideas at times are different and you cannot really mix up. It's like mixing too many meals together. So I think we have to be very specific. If there is one idea and if it is applicable, then we should demonstrate that idea. Maybe the other idea should be tested somewhere. You can always, we have this whole system saying ki har ek se achhe point le lo and then make a design. If many of us are all architects over here, we say, okay, we will have these three winners. Now you collectively, you pick up one idea from here, and make a dish out of it. No, it is at times not possible. And I think particularly when you have streets, it is so complex. There are so many complexities. So maybe one idea you have to take and you demonstrate, test it, and then go ahead. So I really don't know whether the three ideas can be mixed together and merged together, maybe until and unless they are in stretches, maybe the first stretch of maybe 200 meters, another stretch of 200 meters, and another stretch of 200 meters. But it doesn't happen that way, because I think certain sections have to be common and certain systems need to be in place. So to bring in too much of variation into the street, personally, I feel is very difficult. And it is only very little area where you can play with it, there are not many areas where you can play with. So that is where, because it is multidisciplinary, there are so many things, you have to give space for everyone, right from edge to edge, which we can talk about later. So having said that, I think the variations are very limited. There are not many variations, and within that you have to play.
Right. Thank you for that. So my next question comes, you've just hinted at the next one itself. It's about the edge. How do we, so we're talking about complex design implementation out here. And with your experience, the edge becomes very important because the street becomes part of the public space. But the edge and the people on the edge, which maybe there are multiple private players there and also institutional players in play, and especially retailers, when we face a lot of resistance on the edge, because that's going to affect them as well. How do we look at it, and what are your ideas on or the challenges you have faced while dealing with these?
Many, actually, many. And I must also say that when you ask me what are the challenges that I have faced, and Pune in particular, let me put it into a background a bit. Pune city, Pune has been at the forefront and it is not new. And it is 20 years, means I shifted to Pune 30 years ago, and since from Delhi, and since I shifted, there has been a batting going on. It's a 30-year batting that is happening in Pune. And there are certain people who have been behind it and they had set the whole ball rolling. Let me be very candid about it. And these are the people whom most of you, I hope you know the names. The one organization called Parisar, which is Sujit Patwarjan and Ranjit Gadgil. I mean, they have been like, they are the backbones of this movement. Then there is a person like Prashant Inamdar, who is pedestrian first. Then there is Harshat Abhyankar, who is there. Then obviously Pranjali came in when ITDP came in. But before this, these people, and there was something called as Pune Traffic Forum, PTTF, Pune Traffic and Transportation Forum. I still remember this 25 years ago. We started this whole thing that we need to get streets for people. And there was this one person from Mumbai called Mr. Kishan Mehta. I don't know anyone of you know this name. He's no more now with us. And he was that time 70-year-old. So he had called from Mumbai and he started this. And slowly and steadily, this PTTF was built up. Akhtar Chavan used to be very active. Anita Benanger used to be very active then. So I'm trying to say that this was all a long journey. That's why people in Pune have been aware of this. And there as a part of this discussion. And so people know that there is an edge, and there have been so many articles I have where there have been campaigns right from there. There is no footpath. We cannot walk on the footpath. They have been doing footpath audit then. Resident associations have been involved. And to be very honest, I will tell you, the residents and NGOs have been more involved than architects. Let me be very candid about it. For the early 20 parts, no architects except for me and maybe our friend Sharad Mahajan, whom we lost recently, almost a month ago. So these are the very few people who are into it, because this profession of urban design has now come into suddenly a limelight. But otherwise, it is the citizens who used to take that we need walking footpath at the edge and all. So as far as the merchandise are concerned, yes, they are absolutely not for it, because, and this has been a world over situation. It is not an Indian situation, that they always fear that they will lose their customers if you reduce the width of the road, if you reduce parking, and if there is more walkability. So they have always this apprehension, and this apprehension can only be taken care of by talking to them. So there is a lot of individual talk that has to happen. You have to sit with them, chat with them, tell them, and whatever you do, there is still this whole perception that you are reducing the width of the road. But finally, it has to be a barter between everyone, all the stakeholders, right from the pedestrian to the hawker to the what you call parking, cycling, MB lane, bus, and services, and shade and trees. So it is all these components. So it is a democratic space, and this must be given equity and equality for everyone, which is difficult. It is not easy. And it's a battle. It's a long battle. And every street has this battle to be fought. It is not that if you have done it and if you think JM Road, FC Road and DP Road is done, so it is going to come easy on the next street. No, it doesn't come easy on the next street at all. But yes.
So I just like to interrupt you and I ask Aangi, what has her experience been, or what has ITDP's experience been with this challenge through all these other cities that we are talking about in the country, and add on to this discussion from Sir.
Oh, sure, definitely. So no, just building on to Sir's point, I think talking to stakeholders is just it's inevitable. Every single city who has taken part in Streets for People challenge has been like, we have been strongly urging, and we've seen it happen firsthand, like Aurangabad, Nagpur as well, right? That once they share the ownership of the project with the stakeholders, the key stakeholders on site, that's the only time where transformation can happen. Otherwise, there's so much pushback that before the project can actually get implemented, it's just sort of not taking off at all. So yeah, having said that, I mean, I'd also like to bring up the pedestrian plaza example from Chennai. So they've like Sir was mentioning, we had the shop owners association, shopkeepers over there who had multiple concerns about losing their customers because their parking spaces are going to go away, and so on and so forth. So one important tool that I'd like to mention is the tactical urban solutions, or like putting something on ground to demonstrate itself. Once a few trials were done at Pedestrian Plaza in Chennai, we started noticing that the same people who were first pushing back to these ideas started coming back, and they were the ones advocating for it because they'd seen it firsthand. They'd experienced what that actually feels like, and truly seeing is believing. So once these solutions are put on ground is when, along with obviously stakeholder consultations that need to happen before, but once the trial is put on ground is when we're seeing transformation take place. And again, the same stakeholders who are pushing back before are now going ahead and advocating for the same process. So I'd like to really stress upon the fact that testing it out on ground is also a very important communication tool. It becomes like a live form of advocacy in a sense. So talking is one, but testing it out is also very useful. And it's not just that, once you test it, that you cannot learn from it, or that it has to be absolutely correct from the start, right? It's okay to fail. That's what we've been telling cities. It's okay to test out something that's not on point, that's not absolutely right from the start. It's okay to learn from it. Like I'd give Aurangabad's example. They were testing for the India Cycles for Change challenge, and they started with a small patch, I think 50 or 60 meters of a cycle lane itself. And they started noticing encroachment within that. It's a small sort of one pain point that they observed. They realized enforcement is so necessary to make sure that whenever they test out a longer network, they have now got that learning firsthand, and they moved ahead to now enforce for their longer network patches that they're now testing out. So it's a matter of putting it on ground, learning from your own experiences, being okay with making mistakes, constantly tweaking before you scale it up. So yeah, that's been the experience from the cities.
So what is your takeaway from, like Sir has been mentioning about Pune, it's taken them 30 years to be able to implement all these noteworthy examples of streets that we are seeing. What has been your experience while dealing with cities where even having a footpath is actually, is the first essential, and that's the first step to make. So what are the resistance that you face in these kind of cities versus the ones which are at least mature enough to understand now, move a step ahead into the next part of the process?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. There are these different sort of cities that are different levels. And what we're noticing is that in those cities who have not so far have been exposed to non-motorized transport infrastructure, or who have not received or so far been advocated for any such street transformation projects, who are kind of new to this whole process, are their win is coming from citizen participation and building support with the people. So what we're encouraging them to do, along with not just piloting, is also that you've got to sort of bring your citizens together. This is a people's movement. So starting with something very small, like open street campaigns. Even if you close a certain street for 2 hours on a Sunday morning, that becomes a great start to demonstrate to people what your streets can actually do for you beyond moving just cars around. So, I mean, starting with not just that, then perhaps a cycle rally. If you can't even get there, then perhaps just a cycle training camp in one society, within one building, within one neighborhood. So if you start off small and like that, you're starting to build champions, you're starting to build support. And once the citizens start demanding it, is when you can actually, advocate with your administration, with your commissioner to get funding to move this, get this ball rolling. At the same time, cities who are championing, like Pune, there's Bangalore, there are many other cities who are doing fantastic work in this space. They become like the lighthouse or the inspiring cities for the others. So when we go to a smaller city, a city who hasn't been exposed to such infrastructure before, they and we give international examples. The immediate pushback is usually around like, oh, wo to wahan pe hota hai, yahan pe kaise hoga? How will India manage? We have this population, we have this climate, and many other such like very basic level arguments that we get, and that's when we have these cities to lead the others. We give these examples that are like in India itself that's doing such like fantastic work, and that inspires them. And over the past year for C4C and S4P both, what one like fantastic thing that's happened is the peer learning. So when a city is actually realizing that there are other cities within India itself, within the challenge space, joining the same workshops as them, submitting to the same challenges as them, they're reaching out to those cities. They're talking to them and bilaterally talking to them to just learn from their experiences, understand what went right, what went wrong, and very candid conversations are taking place. So these are all like small but very significant wins, I feel, in the journey of these other cities who have a longer way to go, definitely, but not neglecting 30 years of efforts. I think it's those 30 years that is leading the other cities today. So definitely kudos to that, and the effort it's been magnificent, and it's great to have Pune leading the other cities at this point.
Yeah. So my next question now from here, I put it back to Sir again, is about this material palette that we are exploring with the tactical urbanism competitions and the testing on ground solutions. What has so we've been part of 4 discussions in placemaking, and what we've heard as a feedback is that most of these ideas of the material palette seem to be transposed from the West, and we're using paint and tires and wooden crates. It's almost as if it's that one set of materials that we should try and use everywhere and sort of see what comes out of it. But do you really think that designers have somewhere shied away from taking responsibility of the real contextual idea? This question is coming from our question for the day: where do we see this go next? So how do we look at this material palette, and how do you think, does it really help in countering the civic resistance to change? Because these materials are they're good for optics for a few days, and then the city comes back to status quo. So how do we look at this material palette, and is it really working in the true sense? And if yes, what are the reasons for that? And if not, then how do we look at being more innovative? So your mic is in mute again.
Before we come to the material, I think we must understand that, see, there are 2 layers to it. One layer is the street, and the other layer is placemaking. Now, placemaking by itself could be not necessarily on the street. It could be in a place which is adjoining the street. It could be some place which is being thrown with the garbage, so you can convert it, and that can become an activity space. So that is placemaking, and this kind of a thing is easier to do, and it may not have much of a resistance, and you can see the transformation very quickly, and it can also attain a permanency. So let us say there are these odd corners here and there which are there in the city. So tactical urbanism, which is very critical in both the cases, it is very easy to do this here with any material that we talk about. And whether the material is tires or anything, it is fine, but durability is a question. It to demonstrate. I'm not very this thing about the materials in this. Finally, materials have limitations, and this is what it is. It is not that these are Indian materials or Western material. The real issue here is actually the street. And street is a temporary, this whole exercise that we have been doing, and it has been going for a number of years. Happy Streets have been there, Ragdar issue have been there, and as I think she just now pointed out, that Sunday morning you can close for 2 hours. So this all gives exposure to the people, to tell them whether this can also happen. Street can be used for some purposes. But over a period of time, I think one has to come to certain standardization. There is this whole talk which comes to us also, and this word which is used is beautification. And I really don't understand, and I don't agree with this word beautification at all. सुंदर बना दो स्ट्रीट को, but street को सुंदर नहीं बनाना है. I'm very clear on this. There is nothing called beautification on the street. There's nothing called. The tree is there, it is beautiful. That's it. Save that tree, and I think the beautification would happen. You don't have to paint the tree. Recently, in one city, they have painted the trunks of the tree, and we tried to tell them, don't paint the trunks of the tree. And they have painted it all around on one of the streets which we had designed. So now they've done it, and there is an article also about the pigments, this, that, and all. So I think this beautification word has to go, and as soon as we put in beautification, then this whole variation aana chahiye, color aana chahiye. Means I've been given this example. You go to Europe, I've been traveling in Germany. I saw the street details in Munich, which were same, which were in Berlin, and I went to Stuttgart. The same curve, same detail. What is the palette difference? There is no palette difference. Gray tone. Do we have this kind of variation on road? We have a tar road, or we have a concrete road, or we have a cobble road. Tell me, what more variations are we going to bring into the road? No, there will remain within that palette which is there. So I think the palette is also limited. That's the fact. And you can maybe do variation within the palette. And in fact, if you want to scale up this whole thing, we need to standardize things. And I feel that every time we are going to go and say, oh, there has to be, means every neighborhood, yeah, hamare ko ek naya idea do. I said, yeah, I don't have any idea. I have only this dal, roti, sabji and dal, rice. यही है हमारे पास और है नहीं कुछ. Because this is what will get people to use the street with comfort, convenience. Well, these are the priorities. Comfort and convenience is the most important thing. So I think we have to bat there also. I know people want this whole thing, but I think trees, sitting, all these other elements make it much better and simpler. So there is not huge variation that can come in, the huge variation. In fact, let me share with you, when we did the brick sitting, stone sitting in DP Road, there was a huge opposition for that stone sitting. I don't want to name because you are recording. Huge opposition. And they said, you are not being modern. आपके पास कोई modern idea नहीं है, कुछ modern materials बताओ. मैंने कहा ये पत्थर है, पुणे में है, we are in a Deccan plateau, and this is traditional, little of tradition, emotion we try to bring in. And they were not willing to execute the stone at all. We finally forced the contractor, एक sample तो बना दो. At least make the sample because it is in the tender. So whenever we talk about tender, then we cannot get stainless steel or whatever other material. अभी तो tender में नहीं है. Finally, we made the sitting, we made another sitting, we made one more sitting, and rest is history.
Thank you for this, sir. I mean, I think it's a great takeaway for all of us here that standardization is really important, and this thing about kuch naya le aao is a thing that really needs to be well thought through before even saying kuch naya le aao. And I think this dal roti chawal is comfortable for all of us. At the end of the day, the pizza and the pasta are great, but dal roti is what we all come back to in the end. So thank you for that. So, so my next question is, and maybe Aangi, you could also, given your views on that, as to how do we take this from, in terms of ownership? Now, we have a lot of urban designers, a new breed, a new generation that's coming up, being inspired by all the work that has happened. But how do we look at the urban local bodies take the responsibility forward? We have ITDP and WRI and a lot of organizations steering the movement, and of course a lot of professionals like you. But how do we take this forward, and where does this go from here in taking ownership of these ideas that are germinating and creating? Also, the other thing that I add to this question is, how do we look at the structure of the government itself, where where maybe designers in them or some professionals which can actually take this through, because what we're seeing is these are great ideas, but not all of them are coming to the ground.
Sure. So do you want me to go first?
Yeah, please.
All right, sure. Oh, okay. So no, great question. Thanks for that, Anakshi. In the experience that we've had with cities and where they are at right now, you're right that many cities have received designs from multiple practitioners across the country. Some cities have managed to implement, some have not. There have been many administrative sort of challenges that they're facing. But one sort of way forward that we're seeing for all of these cities right now is to build institutional resilience. So what we're trying to do is trying to understand what would be the ULB's sort of gaps moving ahead. Is it coordination between departments while implementing the permanent solutions? What else is it that they're going to face? And based on that, we're giving them the guidance to sort of develop apex committees for healthy streets. So along with sort of getting these designs from the designers, trying to implement something, building support with citizens, it's the chicken and the egg, like one way or the other. They'll try to sort of put infrastructure on ground, citizens will push back, or citizens will be demanding it, and so on and so forth. But how do we get the ball rolling in the background is what's important. So if cities start with developing strong apex committees, which has representation of key decision makers from across multiple departments of the city, and along with that, if they have perhaps a healthy streets department with urban planners, data analysts, architects, designers, and like actual core teams who are working day in and day out to make this happen, see it through. Wherever the design is stuck, whatever the issues are, challenges are, it's okay to face challenges. Each challenge is a learning. But if there is no one in the city pushing it through, then it's going to get stuck, and it's going to be stuck for forever, for that matter. So these two being key, the Apex Committee and the department, is what we're trying to push for in all of the cities. Along with this, we are also trying to get cities to adopt a healthy streets policy. I understand that at the end of the day, a policy is it is an intention document, but to have something governing or guiding how they proceed, how they make or develop the implementation plan is what's very important at this point. So in the coming years, in the next stage, we're going to make sure that cities also develop implementation plans. So they have a team working, they have an apex committee who's guiding and coordinating, then they have an implementation plan that is built up on a healthy streets policy. So with all of this infrastructure, institutional infrastructure, by that I mean, put in place, I'm pretty positive that moving ahead, there will be hiccups, but we're moving in the right direction with all of the cities. So yeah, I think as a way forward, these few elements would be key for cities to get. And even for these, we're noticing from cities that there are a couple of challenges they're facing to develop or to even reach that stage. And I think that's where, again, we go back to demonstrating the need for healthy streets. That goes back to the pilot, that goes back to citizen feedback and citizen buy-ins, and getting people to demand for these things, to demand for funding for these things as well. Over to you, sir, if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, that is the right way to do it. And first is obviously you must have a document in place. See, Pune had this whole advantage, like I think before Pune, UTPAC has done it in Delhi. So UTPAC document was there. So document matters a lot in a government, Sarkari, this thing, because till now also we have been always still referring to IRC. With great difficulty, we have been able to get some amendments in the IRC that these road widths or whatever are not applicable for the urban streets. They are for highway, they are for high speed, where the speed in the neighborhood has to be low. So a document is important, as rightly pointed out. And then the second thing I fully agree, and I think that has to be really done, is that there has to be an in-house system. And the engineers have to be on board. And I think we have to work with engineers. We cannot shy away from engineers. Let us be very, very clear. You have to be with them and you have to work with them, because finally they are going to execute the thing. They are going to execute the thing. And the third thing is this department, which we have been talking about it for a long, long time. In fact, we had some mission from Europe, which had come, and they said that next day we are meeting and this should happen. Pune is doing this. We said, why don't you just get a directive from the chief minister's office that every municipal corporation should have this department of planning, urban design, because we don't have a department of planning and urban design. Our plans are also made by certain, non-architects or engineer planners. So we don't have an in-house system. So you have all traveled abroad and seen all the way the county plans are done, or the neighborhood plans are done, or local area planning is done. So for this, there has to be in-house system. And in India, we are far away from in-house. We are still used to, I'm also part of it, but I would be more than happy to change the gear and say that it should not be consultancy based. And this is a very, very important point I'm trying to make. It cannot be consultancy based. It cannot be always advertised 6 architect consultants. Now you do it. One is going in this direction, another one is going in another direction. And then you are trying to put this whole thing together. It should start from inside. Let these people be sitting inside the system there, guided by some who are experienced, who can come once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, and guide this whole studio team. I think Angi also used the word, department and the studio. It has to be an active studio live inside the municipal corporation. That is the only way out if you want to get uniformity, connectivity, and integration within the city. Otherwise, so right now, fine, because we don't have it. That's why there are all consultants who are doing it. But it should be in-house. We had given years ago a proposal to one of the governments, which I cannot name. And they said, we want to do what, 500, 600 kilometer or 1000 kilometer banana. 1000 kilometers we want to do. I said, okay, fine. How will you do it? You create an in-house system in which you will have, let us say, 10 architects, you will have 4 urban designers, you will have a landscape architect, you will have a graphic designer, you will have a transport planner. We created a complete structure. And we said, what they asked us, what will you do? I said, we will advise. We will be at the top. We will sit with them. And early on, we will come more often. This was not in the city of Pune, to be honest. So they said, then you shift to this city. We said, I will not shift to the city, but we will keep coming to you and we will do hand holding. We identified 2-3 people. These are the experienced people who will handhold. And for 1 year, we will be coming more often. And then slowly and steadily, we will wean out. And by the time you are this 1000 kilometers or 500 kilometers is almost happening, because the template will be common, there will be there. And then only this can happen. It did not see the light of the day. It did not see the light of the day. But I think the way forward is only that. It has to be in-house. And I have not studied these kind of things abroad, but I think if you want to scale it, look at Singapore. We keep on talking every time about Singapore. The whole urban development is inside the system. It is not outside the system. The whole thing is governed from inside. And that is what we should look at. And I hope this will happen because the sensitization has happened. So next, many urban local bodies will take this up and set up. Pune did make an attempt. ITDP knows this. It was ITDP's attempt only. The street design guidelines did come up. They appointed urban designers. Abhijit Kundalkar is here with us, who is part of this inside system. But the inside system doesn't have any teeth. It doesn't have the teeth. It's still not as independent and as, is not able to take those decisions only to do this. So I think they should have their teeth, and the teeth can only come if the system responds to it.
Thank you so much, Sir and Aangi, for bringing out this conversation. I hope there are a lot of people listening to us from here, and this goes down to the ULBs. I hope some of them listen to the conversation and respond. My next question is, Sir, this whole discussion between the guideline and the regulations. We are looking, like we talked about IRC and various codes that are there, and a lot of institutions are writing a lot of guidelines to improve. But do you really think this buck can be stopped at the guidelines? Do we really need regulations? Because the only way to control or to implement, ultimately, we've been seeing it comes down to regulating the way the city works. So do we need regulations also, or are guidelines going to be good for all?
Well, if you have regulation which is mandatory, then it is always good. It is always good, but it takes a lot of time to get that thing through. And you have to work between the two. Whatever you have to work with it. You have the what you call the guidelines of whatever ITDP, there's all these together and you have to work. But there are certain other things which we should be using, particularly the street, and we are using it very, very effectively is universal accessibility. Now, let me tell you, when we are doing these streets, we are again and again telling them that there is a Universal Accessibility Act, there is a Supreme Court order, the street have to be universally accessible. And this problem everybody faces when we have footpaths and then we have bollards and then we have to leave the wheelchair gap over there. And then they say, no, we cannot leave the wheelchair gap because motorcycle will go over there. So the other day also somebody forced us, they said, I will put a bollard over here in between. I said, you may do it, but our drawings are not going to have it. And this is illegal. This is not done. If there is an audit from the center, we also use this. We say this because this is smart city funding XXX, and there could be audit from the center. Then who is going to be responsible for it? Because you can pinpoint, because there is an act of parliament. Similarly, we have an act which is there, which is the Street Vendors Act. The Vendors Act. So now vendors also have a right on the street. So again, so you have to keep on telling people, and educating them that this is. And one aspect, particularly one stakeholder, which we didn't discuss so far, we talked about citizens, corporation. We're not talking about politicians. I feel the real thing is the local corporator. And let me tell you very honestly, whatever success we have had, we have been dealing directly with the local corporators. Our first very experiment at ITI Road was with a corporator. When we told the corporator, you are spending so much of money, why don't you do it the way we are trying to tell you? People will be happy and everybody, it will be a win-win situation. So I think it's the corporator who is very critical. And if he understands this, maybe he will call it beautification. It doesn't matter to us. We look at it as convenience. So wordings could be different as, so he will tell his electorate, I'm beautifying. We'll say we are putting in comfort. So it's up to anyone that how the food tastes. It is going to help you grow, isn't it? So it's fine. Somebody will look at the food because it is looking very good, or you will have the food because it is tasting very good. Obviously, the second one is going to be interesting, isn't it? It has to taste good, and then it has to give you nutrients also. So the last one is whether the food looks beautiful. This is how I look at a street meal. The last one is beautification. First two is whether it has fulfilled these two needs of health and comfort.
Aangi, your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I am in complete agreement with Sir in this space that it's important to look at a street from multiple facets. And I think in Mumbai also, they have money allocated in each ward for beautification, what they call. But then they get in consultants, and consultants look at it differently. They try to do the most of it. They try to bring in the health and the taste aspects of things. But eventually the political side is still going to call it beautification. 50 lakh har ward ko de diya beautification ke liye. So I think it's important to definitely look at streets from that, from an angle that they need to work first for comfort, for people, for access, for all, for women, for safety, in the night, in the day, all the time, in all the weathers, for every single person, for cyclists as well, for people who want to go on wheelchairs, everything before it needs to look good, definitely.
So it's great that both of you are feeding into my next question. It's about the funds itself, the big elephant in the room that's always there. So we have budgets allocated, or as we know of, there are budgets allocated for streets every year for all the cities, but they sort of don't really go down to, the same street gets repaired, new things get put into it, and all the problems that we see in our city. And aaj ye jagah khod diye, kal wo khod diye. So how do we look at the transparency in where the money is really going and what streets really needed? So in corporations like Mumbai and Pune and Delhi as well, how do we look at money or funds as a factor, or the challenges you've seen, or some observations that you have on the way money gets used?
Can I take that?
Please, I'd love to hear about that.
So I think it's not really an issue of how the money really gets used, or we have this whole. Yesterday there was a agitated citizen here on Aund only, and he has been chasing my team for last 6 months and trying to say why trees are like this, why this is like this, why this is like this, and he wanted to meet me. So I was telling him, and I was telling him, I am 100% with you that the tree is to be saved. And then he came to this whole thing, this all happens because money goes here, money goes there. I said, why do you believe in this whole thing? Means where money goes, I'm not concerned. First of all, I'm not going to get into that audit. But I think the real issue is of the attitude, the attitude with which you spend the money. Today, the road budgets are huge and they are spent, but they are spent on the carriageway. They are spent on the carriageway because the carriageway is easy for everyone. It is easy for the contractor. It is easy for the execution. And it is also easy for everyone because it is seen immediately कि भाई रास्ता अच्छा हो गया, concrete or tar and ekdam smooth, khadde nahi hai. Because look at the people's perception. People want khadda free road. The press. Now we have not talked about press. Where is press in this whole thing? I think whom are we trying to educate? The citizens? I'm sorry, Miss. I think we need to have real meetings with the press first. It is the press who puts this whole thing in a completely different perspective, let me tell you. They put it in a different perspective. So this budget goes into this, and the edge is, as I call the edge is the embroidery. It's the embroidery, and that embroidery takes time and effort, which most of the contractors are not used to doing. So it is not that they don't want to do it or the system doesn't want to do it. The system is not aware of it at all. So if I can quote the Mumbai Street Lab example of MCGM, is one of the examples where you have huge money, but the attitude is not there. The difference between Pune Municipal Corporation or PCMC and MCGM was this, because their engineering team has not been sensitized to this at all. That sensitization process has not happened. It is not that they don't want to do it, let me tell you. The 20 to 30 member team came to Pune, saw all the Pune work, and they were so excited, but it didn't happen. And finally, it fizzled out. You have been part of it. Means all the winners kept on writing. The whole thing is fizzled out in Mumbai. And Mumbai has much more scope, and Mumbai is a walking city. If you want to give example, people walk to the station, people walk to the best. So it has had this heritage of walking, and this didn't happen. So I think it is the finance is very much there. It's a question of attitude. I will not go into the other aspects of it. That is separate. But we had given a very interesting suggestion in one of the committee meetings in, I think, Pune or which city, I don't know, or at the highest level in Delhi or something. We said, whenever you have a road budget, why don't we come out with a amendment or whatever it is, that 30% of the road budget has to be spent on the edges. तो अगर आप 20 करोड़ का टेंडर निकाल रहे हो या 50 करोड़ का टेंडर निकाल रहे हो, तो उसका 15 करोड़ will go on the edges. Not services, not services. Only edge treatment of footpath, edges, tree gratings, lighting, and all this. You can call it what one believes or says superficial beautification. So, उस पे आप खर्चा करो, the embroidery पे. It didn't happen. So what happens? The budgets goes into services because they are important. Water supply, drainage, electrical, and then the main surface. And this doesn't come through. So I think that is where it needs to be dovetailed in. And which cities are doing it? Pune is doing it. I'm sure Chennai is doing it. Bangalore has started doing it. And now they have realized that a street per kilometer costs. I don't know what are the figures with you, but the figure is that if you want to do the complete services, all services relayed, we did at DP Road. JM Road did not relay all the services. They only do the surface thing. So I don't know what is the tender cost there, but in DP Road, it was 15 crores per kilometer with all the services. So if you don't want to change all the services and you don't want to change the middle carriageway, it still costs you 5 to 7 crores per kilometer. And these budgets are not very high budgets that way. It looks very high for me also, it looks very high. But for a corporation with a reasonable budget, it is not very high. Smaller corporations have issues. Like we were in some smaller cities whose whole budget is around 400 crores or 500 crores. Pune Municipal Corporation has 6,000 crores and PCMC has 7,000 crores. And Mumbai Municipal Corporation annual turnover is around 25,000 crores, I am told. So look at the figures, So then it matters, because when we are talking about all this, I think these figures of finances are very important, very, very important. How much time will it take for us to transform this?
If I may just quickly add something. So yeah. No, I think the 30%, the suggestion of allocating 30% to the edge it's very interesting. And I hope somewhere, someday, or maybe this conversation here gets taken ahead and gets implemented. But just to quickly add one point, that to get decision makers to allocate funds, it's also important to have data backing this kind of approach, right? So we strongly sort of push for a data driven decision making approach. Like, so you mentioned that in Mumbai people walk, there is a high mode share of pedestrians and cyclists. So what if this data itself was used to get decision makers to allocate funds, so that you're advocating or making a strong case with numbers that are backing you? And once they actually allocate funds and they see that the possibility of impact allocated to funds that's backed with data is so immense, eventually that project, that trial, that test itself would start becoming a case to allocate more funds based on the same information. So with just that sort of thought process in mind, it's like at any point when we're advocating for the funds to be allocated to a certain non-motorized transport project, I think having strong data backing it has always helped us make the case. And yeah, like so you mentioned, we're also working with around 10 to 20 CR a kilometer for any street transformation project that's going ground up. So like he also, like some like you mentioned, it's not that big a figure, but it's just about the avenues or the sort of attitude, like you said, with which it's sort of allocated. Is it going to the carriageway? Where is it going? How is it going to happen? And when you have numbers backing it, that division becomes much simpler.
Thank you. So I'll just put in a last question to round up this discussion, and then we can open the floor for our audience here to ask anything that they would like to. So just, what would be your closing remarks on coming back to the real question of our conversation today? How do we look at tactical urbanism becoming part of strategic plans? So what do you see the challenges, and what do you see the future of this? And, what are your plans, and what are ITDP's plans to take it ahead? And Sir could also add, the things that we need to take into consideration to move ahead.
Sure. Our plans are to continue working with cities and constantly roll out stage 2, get more cities doing streets for people, and embed the test, learn, scale approach. I cannot emphasize more on how successful that approach has been. And we're seeing this approach getting institutionalized within city processes. It's becoming how cities are thinking, which is so critical to take forward tactical. So it's new, right? In India, it's not heard of for cities to constantly just test something out with barricades, paint, bollards, ये वो ऐसे जल्दी से डाल के एक drone video ले लिया and it's done. And then you're building a case. It's new. I mean, we're used to investing a lot of money in permanent infrastructure before actually knowing whether people want it, whether people need it, how they feel about it, and what their concerns are regarding it. So to institutionalize test, learn, scale by constantly having these conversations with the people who are making the decisions and getting them to understand the benefits of it. And we're seeing that transformation happen firsthand. If in 1 year we know cities who are adopting this as a process beyond just the challenges, I'm sure in the times ahead, we're going to be able to make a transformational difference in multiple more cities. And that is the hope with which we're working on both the challenges right now. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, there is no other way. I mean, tactical urbanism is the most simplest way, easier way, economical way, and trying to reach the people so that people start demanding. And the people start demanding, it is the best thing to happen. I would only say that when we go to people and do it, the two components who have to be absolutely dovetailed into this is the local politician and the local engineers. Because the system is, and I've seen successes where engineers are extremely committed because they have been transformed. I'm surprised to see certain engineers, the way they have been transformed. And this transformation has not happened overnight. It is 10, 15 years they have been listening to this and slowly and steadily, and they have become the people who are championing this. And in fact, when we say at times कि सर ये ऐसे नहीं होगा, ये वगैरह नहीं 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 हमने छोड़ना नहीं है, साइकिल ट्रैक तो इतना होना ही चाहिए. We said नहीं निकलेगा सर, नहीं नहीं 2 meters, 2.2 meter two-way cycle track is a must. So they are insisting and they are batting on ground. So it is very, very encouraging to see this. And as she has said that this is a long journey. All European countries took 30 years, 20, 30 years to establish this. So I think we are doing extremely well with these two challenges and with the environment at the center being so positive, and so many cities, and we have a huge country, and you obviously we can bring in a different change in very different kind of zones that we have. So it will take time, and this whole thing should go on. It will continue, and more people should be, and I'm so happy to see that there are so many young people who are into it. The change will come from the next generation. Let us be very, very clear. If after me in my office, every person, means the senior most in my office is half my age. Senior most in my office is less than half my age, my dear friends. Less than half my age. I can see Chetan Sode here. He was here just now. He's vanished from here. He used to be working with me when we had absolutely nothing to do. We just used to go and chat and hear, and any delegation coming, we used to say, Chetan, you go, chalo inko ye dikhao, ek chota sa 500 meter dikhao. And Chetan used to take everybody who used to come from Europe and anywhere. This is what we have done, and this is what PMC has done. So the younger brigade, which is there into it, with all the faces over here, I think you have a huge thing, and you will see this transformation really happen. And I also say that I say that flyover world over are being demolished. Is it going to happen in India? I said, of course this is going to happen in India, but you will be able to see it. I don't know whether I will see demolition of flyovers, though in Pune one flyover is demolished, but there is a triple flyover coming on top of it. So that is not, Vipra knows about it. So that is not, when we are saying demolishing the flyover, we are talking about the Seoul one where the public space is being coming in. So that's my take on it, on a very, very positive thing. And I think your generation is going to really bring in this change.
So it's great to hear such positive thoughts from you. And just to add, age is but a number. So you have been leading us and this transformation since such a long time. And it's this whole thing is set up because there have been visionary leaders such as yourself, who have made this transformation a reality, who fought the most difficult battles for us to sort of have such an much easier, relatively easier path ahead of us. So thank you so much.
Let me again tell you, these battles, though we were there, these are the people are like Sujit Patwardhan, Ranjit Gadgil, Sanskruti Menon, Harshad Abhyankar, Prashant Inamdar. They are all non-architects. They're all, and Sujit is like, means I think, I always say that Sujit, you should be given an honorary doctorate, Absolutely, without any of this thing. Some university should give Sujit Patwardhan the honorary doctorate. And I've seen this whole vision with this. They have batted for this, And there are two more people, means which I would really like to. Three people. One is Dr. Geetam Tiwari from IIT Delhi, Dr. Dinesh Mohan from IIT Delhi, and Sandeep Gandhi from Delhi. Sandeep Gandhi is younger than me, but these two other stalwarts who are Dinesh Mohan and Geetam Tiwari, who have been at it, and many more in Delhi, who have been the NGOs which I know of. So I think every city has established this. I don't know people in Chennai and Bangalore that much, but Geetam Tiwari and Dinesh Mohan have been batting for this, They put their whole life into this. And that's why we can see things happening in the right platform today. And obviously ITDP, WRI, and all other organizations who have contributed so much, including who? Pranjali and who is ITDP chief? Shreya. So they've been all the time. It has been a long journey with Shreya also.
So with your permission, let's open the floor for our audience.
Absolutely open.
Yeah. So if we have any questions from the audience, we'd like to take them up. We have a little less than 15 minutes. So any questions that are there from the audience, we can take them. You can just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Okay, can I start with a question?
Yes.
Okay. I think this was an extremely insightful discussion that we had, because not both of you working almost on the same thing, but with completely different insights and experiences. What I would like to know, in both your opinions, as a how do you see the future of streets for people, or better streets for people, or what we call as better experience for pedestrians, cyclists, and besides motorists? How can, when, or how do you see it converting into a normal thing than being a novelty? Or we not only have streets which are what do they say, sample pieces, or small stretches of streets, but we see an entire network where all the streets in the city follow the same language or have the same kind of convenience for the users. How do you see that happening, or do you see that happening, or what would be your thought on that?
See, this would happen. I think we have reached one stage. The next stage is the press on our side? Is the television media on our side? Is press being publicizing enough and trying to tell, not again the, as you rightly use the word, novelty?
Right.
ये एक street बहुत सुंदर बन गया है. No.
Exactly.
So I think we have to also change our language. We also have to change our language and again hammer that this is not this. This is convenience, comfort, safety. As one is safety.
Right.
Eyes on the street. People should be there on the street
Right.
so that the women and ladies are safe. Chain snatching doesn't happen. So where is the press? Press is not there. It's one article, 1 month, doesn't really help at all. The television media completely away from us. There are hardly any discussions. There are big discussions on NDTV, which I thought in one day it was there. Maybe we are talking about pollution all the time. This is there. So Sunita Narayan is there, and everything is happening. But ground level things. Why doesn't Amir Khan pick this up one in what is that program called Sunday ka kaun sa hota hai?
Satyamev Jayate.
Yes, means I am looking at it always like this. I am waiting for the day when Amir Khan will take this up, because he had taken this issue of water once.
Water.
I remember.
Yes.
And
Pani.
was this person called from Rajasthan again, who is no more with us, who has written these 2 books called Rajasthan Ki Rajat Bhumi or Aaj Bhi Khare Hain Talab. I will, this name will come to me. So he was there on this television thing. So I think people need to be there, and I think these 2 medias need to be explored. Then only it will reach the people faster. This one scaling is fine. It has to come onto the media. It has to be written again and again in the newspaper. And maybe, I don't know whether there is in a protocol with ITDP, WRI, or anybody. I think we should have exclusive sessions only for the press. Very difficult to get press on board to attend the sessions and all. But somewhere, some kind of a very special sessions need to be organized. And few key people from press all over the country should be on. And why not, means to be very direct, why not Rajdeep Sardesai, why not Pranav Roy, why not somebody else to talk about this? That is what we should aim at. Right. Then only it will reach. And why not get somebody to sponsor all this? Maybe Amir Khan and maybe somebody else, Amitabh Bachchan, to say that this is what is required. I'm being very candid about it. I mean, this is the way it has to happen, because that's how you promote everything else. The other day I saw something being promoted about energy and all, and one particular company was promoting that energy. It was not promoting energy ki daylight is important or something. It was talking about saving energy in a tube light, and one of the topmost Indian celebrities was supporting that. So obviously that is financial. It is not connected with the society as such.
Yeah.
He has been hired on finances, but this is not through finances. I think there can be many government programs where agar टीकाकरण के लिए Shabana Azmi can come and say that टीकाकरण होना चाहिए. Similarly, somebody can say, come and say कि walkability is good for health and we must have safe footpaths. I don't know. Somebody can pick it up. And
So I think I'd like to add an example here. We had RJ Dhwanit in Ahmedabad promoting planting of trees, and there was a very strong movement. And within a year, they were able to plant 1.5 lakh trees by just using radio as a medium. Which sort of this radio has even diminished now. So I mean, truly, we can use the power of press to take this movement ahead.
And how does something become mainstream, right? That is the question. Like, to make something mainstream, people who are in the mainstream today need to not treat it as a novelty. So like Sir rightly mentioned, and I think Sir pointed out before as well, right? To get celebrities, sportsmen, market media, or any of these people on board, it's important to sort of demonstrate the benefits of it. So it kind of boils down to politicians to get political buy-in for something like this, for them to actually accept these campaigns, to understand citizen demand. That's when we'll see transformation happening. When citizens see it happen, there will be many other sort of, then celebrities themselves will want to start promoting it. As of now, we are encouraging all the cities to reach out to whoever their influencers are, people who have been championing these causes in the political side, or if be it in the press or anywhere else, to constantly put it on social media, to let the print media also know, have like host press workshops and whatnot. Like, we've been trying to get cities to do that, but there is a limitation around it until there is actual transformation on ground that needs to happen small bits at a time, from which will eventually get accelerated by political will.
I think Arpita from Aurangabad Smart City has a question. You can go ahead.
Hi. So no, I did not have a question, but I just wanted to add, since I'm a journalist and now I'm working as a media analyst at Aurangabad Smart City. So what Sir said about media outreach and engaging the celebrities, so I totally agree and understand on that front. And yes, engaging a celebrity or an influencer to spread across that message would just make it very, very simple for us. So we try to reach out to print media, and so one thing is that if you want to reach to the people and send the message, it best is the use of vernacular language. So we in Maharashtra, if it is broken down in Marathi to the citizens, it's very easy to understand for them, and then they understand what is in for them in this. So it's not something, an idea that has come to Aurangabad Smart City team or the Smart City CEO or the municipal commissioner, who wants to implement some project, but it is for the citizens. So that is one use of vernacular language and very, very simple explanation of the entire concept, and also 100% engagement of celebrity figures. Or there are, so in our case, our MP is a young MP and he has a huge fan following. So even if he gives one statement that about walkability, that itself makes a huge impact. So I'm just talking about the local Aurangabad level, but when it comes to state level or national level impact, so yes, some celebrity figures or some Bollywood actors, or those who have a lot of following, a single statement from them would make a lot of impact. It would make a lot easier for all of us.
Yes, just to add to what Arpita is saying, की yes, अर्पिता मराठीतच बोलायला पाहिजे, आणखी म्हणजे लोकल लँग्वेज मध्येच एक्सप्लेन करायला पाहिजे, त्याच्यात काय प्रश्नच नाही. आणखी तरच लोकांना कळतं. आणखी आम्ही पण भरपूर मराठीत स्पीच देतो. 1.5 तास नॉनस्टॉप मराठीमध्ये लास्ट सॅटर्डेला मी प्रेझेंटेशन केलं, आणखी साध्या भाषेत केलं. तुम्ही मला जर बोलवलं औरंगाबादला, मी नक्की येईन. आणखी त्या यंग एमपीला नक्की तिथे सांगा, फक्त त्याला एवढं सांगा की 1.5 तास त्यांनी बसावं. त्यांनी नक्की 1.5 तास बसावं आणि ऐकावं. आणि याच्याकरता एक उदाहरण देतो, परत नाव नाही सांगू शकणार. एक यंग, नॉट एमपी, यंग MLA, त्यांनी एक काम बघितलं आणि त्यांनी आम्हाला बोलवलं आणि त्यांनी म्हटलं की मला हे ऐकायचंय. म्हटलं सर किती वेळ आहे? तर त्याच्यानंतर त्यांनी पूर्ण ऐकलं. त्यांनी त्यांच्या कॉन्स्टिट्युएन्सीमधले त्यांचे जे सिनियर MLA होते त्यांना पण बोलवलं. त्यांनी परत 1.5 तास दिला. आता आम्ही 5दा त्यांच्याशी आमचं भेटणं झालंय या MLAंशी आणि त्यांना हे सगळं लॉजिक एकदम पटलेलं आहे. जेव्हा आम्ही त्यांना म्हटलं की आम्ही अशी हे सगळे फुटपाथ एका लेवलला करतो आणि त्याच्यामुळे व्हीलचेअर जाते, त्याच्यामुळे प्रॅम पण जाते, तर ते स्वतः म्हणाले, "अरे हे मला लक्षातच नाही आलं. मी माझी बायको युरोपला गेलो होतो आणि आमचं छोटं बाळ होतं. आम्ही तिथे प्रॅम विकत घेतली आणि नंतर मी माझ्या बायकोला म्हटलं, की आता या प्रॅमचं काय करायचं? आपण युरोपला विकूनच जाऊ. कारण भारत देशात तर आपल्याला प्रॅम चालवताच येणार नाही." They sold their pram in that country and they came back. And now I realize you talking about uh, using the wheelchair universal accessibility, which will also
Right.
help prams to move. And he says, I want to do this in my city and let us see how we can do it. So let us hope we'll see the light of the day. And it is a smaller town. It is not a big town like Pune and Mumbai, Nasik, which doesn't have that much of budget, but he has the vision. So that's why I'm very, very candidly saying it is this young generation, including young politicians who have seen the world, they can connect. And as I think Aangi also said that we need to relate it to safety, and the other aspect is health. We need to relate it with health. And do we have doctors on board, because we have all these slides now, walking, brisk walking reduces weight, then diabetes come down, hypertension acha hota, ye hota, wo hota. This is what the press has to say, if you are able to walk, but we cannot walk because it is not safe, because somebody is going to knock you down. So my father or your grandfather does not walk because he feels unsafe. गिर जाओगे पापा, आप आपको गिर जाओगे, आपका फ्रैक्चर हो जाएगा, सड़क तो ऐसी है, आप उतरो ही नहीं. Now look at the social problem. So I think we have to really tell the social advantages of walking and safe streets. And this is where, so I'm completely away from this beautification into bracket, safety, health. तो आप तुमची फार गरज आहे आणि नक्की लोकल लँग्वेज मध्येच करायला पाहिजे. पण तिने अर्पिताने यांनी जर आम्हाला चेन्नईला बोलवले तर आय कॅनॉट स्पीक देअर. आय विल हॅव टू स्पीक इन इंग्लिश ओनली.
हो सर, नक्की बोलू औरंगाबादला.
Thank you, Arpita. Do we have anyone else? We'll take this as the last question.
Hi, I'm Shah. Hello, can you guys hear
Hi,
me?
Shah. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sharaj. I'm an urban planner. I'm currently working with WSP. So I had a question for Desai, sir. So you talked about, having a system from the inside that is like within the government to like advocate for like all our transportation related problems exclusively, like whatever we've been discussing, like tactical urbanism. And so there was this, I'm not sure it has been implemented in a lot of cities, but I think Hyderabad is doing it. It's called AMTA, Unified Metropolitan Transport Authority. So, sir, your take on it, or like how effectively has it been, or like what's your perspective?
I'm not very sure what AMTA finally did, but there was this one again. I have these names in my mobile, but I don't remember this name. There was this person like Sujit Patwardhan in Hyderabad. He always used to talk about AMTA, and AMTA was talking about an integrated transportation system between the bus service, the railway, before the metro came in, and walkability and all. But it did not see the light of the day. It is not only having the bureaucratic system or engineering system in place. It is to have these local departments, the real departments. Means if you are an architect, urban planner or so, there has to be a studio in the city. Like the private consultant has a studio, like HCP has a studio, 4-layer studio. So one full studio is for Sabarmati riverfront. One full could be now right for riverfront. So there has to be a huge studio with 50 people for neighborhood upgradation ward by ward. So that it has to be a design studio, It has to be designed. See, unfortunately in India, the design realm is not there in the government system. As such, the government system is weakening. And no new recruitment for urban planners, urban engineers, architects. So everything in India has become consultancy based. Everything has become consultancy based, which I feel is not the right thing to do. So if you are, most of you are, if you are architects, there are 40,000 architects passing out each year. Everybody thinks that he's going to start a private practice. Now there are some openings that some are joining WRI, ITDP and all these organizations. Otherwise, organizations like McKinsey and all these huge organizations again. And these are the people who are looking at the urban design solutions. But I feel the design solution systems should be in-house, particularly at the lower level, if not for the large level. Metro cannot be designed inside. I understand that. But streets can be designed. Neighborhood, you do this project in urban design all the time. If urban design can, local area planning. This is a very, one of the studios in all urban design studios is local area planning. What is local area planning? Local area planning is there should be a school, there should be a health center, there should be a park, there should be a shopping center, there should be a cinema hall, there should be a theater. And you all should be able to connect this, walk and cycle. We are not asking you to cycle 20 kilometers, but you should at least cycle for 2 to 3 kilometers, shorter distances. So I'm talking about this, and this doesn't happen. The local area planning doesn't happen. And that is what I'm very, very strong supporter of it. And this has to happen from top down. This will not happen bottom up. This has to happen with maybe the CM and the chief secretary and the city, because we don't have a mayor system. Please understand. Charles Correa always used to say that we must have a mayor system. The mayor should be in the command of the city. This is another administrative issue. We don't have a mayor. We have a bureaucratic commissioner who is in the command of the city, who is there 2 to 3 years, and which Correa always said that he has no interest that way in the city. The interest in the city is for the local mayor who can take decisions and who has, and if you talk about Curitiba, Bogota, all these things, it's the mayors who have brought in the change, including what you call New York, Enrique Peñalosa. So all these people were the mayors, elected mayors, and they have stake in winning the election. Let us be very direct. The stake has to be for winning the election. Stake is not there for anything else. So I think that is the change which has to happen. But in India, Charles also said, and many bureaucratic people we have discussed, this elected mayor system is not going to really happen. So maybe we have to find some other way, but we must have an in-house system to upgrade our city's quality of life.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so it's 8:30 and I think it's a great note to wrap the conversation on. So I'd like to thank sir for inspiring, my generation, and I hope, a lot more people will come up to take up these challenges and, to come and do better things for the city. And I hope the tactical urbanism idea and along with placemaking and street redesign helps us transform our cities into safer places. And the great ideas that have come out in this discussion, I hope the people take it up who are already part of the conversation. I hope it reaches more people to take up these conversations in more rigorous ways and try and take stewardship of our cities that we sort of sometimes shy away from. So Vipra and Vinita, if you'd like to give some closing comments.
Yeah, I'd like to thank both Prasanna and Aangi for really setting out the agenda and really laying out what the priorities are, because we've had a great start with building support and championship from citizens, igniting the whole movement, placemaking. And citizens hopefully start demanding, better streets. But as Prasanna has very astutely pointed out, that it's the high-profile endorsements, celebrity endorsements, cultivating local politicians, and capacity building for local engineers. The engineers at the city level. And general sensitization, to the entire ecosystem of the primacy of design, before civil engineers take it over. I think this really, we really have our agenda cut out. And I'd like to thank Prasanna and Aangi both for participating such a sort of hard-nosed and in a very joyful manner. I really appreciate that. Just to give you some announcements about things that are to come. Prasanna, you received an invitation from Arpita, and we actually are going to have a face-to-face meeting of the Maharashtra Hub in the month of December. So it's the weekend of December 18th and 19th, and whoever would like to come, you're most welcome. We do have a limitation about 20 people, but this will be a great occasion to meet face to face after months of online meetings. So do keep that weekend open. And then we do have an annual meet in February. So that's an annual meet for the whole of Placemaking India. And I'd like to welcome you all, because we'll have some great, we have some programs planned for about 5 days, and it'll be all centered on the backwaters of the Suvarna River, a beautiful location in my ancestral district in Udupi. So I'd like to extend a welcome to all of you to attend. And meanwhile, next month, we will be launching the Gujarat Hub. So Gujarat has been very inspired and fired up by the Maharashtra Hub, and so they are launching their own hub. So there'll be a joint meeting of the Gujarat and the Maharashtra Hub, on the 3rd, it'll be the last weekend, at the last Sunday of November. So please do be there. Thank you very much. I'll hand it over back to Meenakshi, or actually maybe Vipra. Vipra, you can close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for attending, for Meenakshi for doing such a great job at the whole moderation, and of course, Desai sir and Aangi, thank you so much for being with us here today and giving us a wonderful insight into things that we hope will happen in the near future. And I think this was a great session we had today to sum up our entire series on Streets for People, and hopefully we see more implementation projects in the future and get the designs converted into real things. So thank you so much for being here today with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting, and let us stay in touch. All the best.
Definitely. So thank you. Thank you, Aangi.
Thank you, Vinita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
It's been
Thank
great
you,
sharing
Anika,
this space.
for wonderfully moderating that.
Thank you, sir.
Very good moderation. And
Thanks.
a pleasure meeting you, Aangi. We have never met, but a pleasure meeting you online.
Thank you so much.
Hope to see you offline sometime. If any one of you is in Pune anytime and wants to see what is happening, we are always there on the site. You can always hop in a live cookery session, you may call it live cookery session. What is cooking, or right on the street with engineers and not bureaucrats, but engineers, contractors, with contractors, it is like yesterday or today, he said, no, हमें तो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी का वो 20-20 मीटर पे लगाना है। मैंने कहा 20-20 मीटर पे फुटपाथ पे थोड़ी लगता है, फुटपाथ पे तो 10-10 मीटर पे लगता है। नहीं साहब, वो तो 20 मीटर पे लगा, 20 मीटर वरतीच लावतो आम्ही। म्हटलं लावतो नाही, आता बदला म्हटलं. You change. Our footpath needs lighting at every 10 meters, then only they will be safe. So these are the small things which happen there, and the live, like you are cooking the dish, So you are most welcome anytime. My team will be more than happy if I am not there, but you can join in. Anybody can join in into these live markings, and in tactical urbanism, what you are doing, marking. We are actually, we have drawings, we end up marking on the site, because the drawings just don't match the sites at time, because the survey is there, not there. The tree girth shifts or something else shifts. So anybody who is interested in seeing this live, there are parallel things happening here and there. If you are in Pune, and if you are coming to Pune, I hope you are linked to our Facebook page and Instagram, which I am not. So I don't know what is being posted. I don't know what is being posted. It is being posted by my office team, but you can be in touch on my mobile with a WhatsApp. and we can always organize, and it doesn't have to be very formal. It can be very informal. You can just hop into the meetings also. We are very transparent on it, unless it is extremely confidential. The idea is to share knowledge so that this can spread all around. And so there is no secret here. We have nothing, no secret in our office. So
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I'll even forward the invitation to the Pune office. We have colleagues there
we
already.
keep on meeting. We keep on meeting, Pranjal.
Yeah.
In fact, last Saturday we had a marathon session where Pranjal also presented. He was there whole day, and this was sensitizing engineers and all engineers, including the not the road engineers, but electrical engineers, and the commissioner had the whole auditorium was full with 500 people, including project management consultants. So there is no point in we talking to each other all the time, because we know that we are all convinced about it. So you have to meet those people. So okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Thank you so